I walked into my house and instantly rolled my eyes because there was a hole in my roof I'd never seen, and I had no idea how it got there. It was so small, I wasn't even going to fix it. But that night, while I was sleeping, I woke up to water pouring on my face because it was raining. I called a contractor in the morning and stood outside tapping my foot, but when he stepped out of his truck, my jaw dropped because he was at least 400 pounds. He barely glanced up at the hole in my roof before waving his hand. "That little thing? I'll have it patched in 10 minutes. This is easy." He leaned his ladder against the house and started climbing like he'd done it 1,000 times. But something about the way the ladder creaked under his weight made my stomach turn, so I climbed up behind him to keep an eye on things. He walked right up to the hole and took out his tools, but the roof was already bending. "Are you sure this roof can hold you? You know, because of how heavy your tools are and everything?" I tried finding a way to phrase it nicely, but he put his bucket of cement down and got in my face. "What are you trying to say? I've been doing this for 20 years. This roof is solid." He stomped his foot down to prove it, and that's when it happened. My roof cracked open right under him. I watched in horror as this 400-pound man crashed on my living room floor stomach first. He laid there flat and not moving, while I stood on the edge of the brand new crater in my roof. I wasn't even going to fix it. Now the hole was 10 times as big. I was walking out of the store when an old man on a red mobility scooter rolled up next to me and asked if he could carry my groceries. I told him no thanks and started walking home. I shifted my grocery bag to my other hand, slipped my wallet into my back pocket, and clenched my keys between my fingers like my mom taught me. When I glanced back half a block later, he was still rolling behind me with that little basket up front. I walked faster. The scooter matched my pace. I had no idea what this old man wanted from me, but it couldn't be good. I kept glancing back the whole walk home, and every time he was still there with the scooter humming behind me. I took my usual left turn, and he took the same left. A block later, I turned onto Walnut, and so did he, and my chest tightened. Who was this guy? Michael Myers? I was full-on speed walking now, looking back every few seconds, but I couldn't lose the hum of the scooter. Every true crime podcast I'd ever listened to started playing in my head. I dropped the grocery bag and sprinted. I cut through somebody's yard and looped around the block with my heart pounding. When I finally turned onto my street, he was already there at the far end with my front door halfway between us. I ran. I burst inside, slammed the door, locked it, and pressed my back against it. My hands were shaking so hard I couldn't steady them. Outside, the hum got louder until it stopped right in front of my apartment. 3 slow knocks. I crawled to the peephole and looked through it. The old man was holding something up in one hand. It took me a full 5 seconds to realize it was my wallet. I checked my back pocket. Empty. I slowly opened the door. "You dropped this in the parking lot," he said. I tried to catch up, but these scooters don't go very fast. I took the wallet with both hands, too stunned to say anything except thank you. He nodded and started turning the scooter around, then paused. "You should be careful walking alone at night," he said. "Lots of weirdos out here." I walked into school with my new platform shoes, and my classmate Darren instantly pointed at them. "Hey, can we swap? Those look so cool." I told him no, because one of my legs is shorter than the other, and these shoes are custom built so I can walk around pain-free. Darren snarled and took off his shoes. "But mine light up. You'll be fine." I told him no and walked away. But during lunch, I felt a sharp pain in my foot. I took off my shoe to see what was wrong, and that's when Darren grabbed my shoe. "If I can't have your shoes, then neither can you." He threw them down the hill before I could stop him. I watched the reason I could walk pain-free tumble down and land somewhere deep in a dirty bush. I dropped to the floor crying, but then Darren gripped his head. "Oh my God, one of your legs is actually shorter. That's so funny." He took out his phone and started taking pictures, and that's when I snapped. I stood up, clenched my fists, and told him, "Since you threw my shoes, you can go find them." I pushed him, and he went flying down the hill. I watched him tumble into the same dirty bush and clutched my stomach laughing. I was still on the ground rolling when Darren walked out of the bush, now crying because his arms and face were cut from the thorns. He still didn't have my shoe, but he immediately ran and told the teacher. But when she marched up the hill and I explained what happened, her face instantly went hard. She turned to Darren and told him, "You know she needs this shoe to walk, and you still threw it away, so you're gonna go find it." She pointed at the bushes so fast, Darren didn't even have time to protest. He crawled back into the thorns on his hands and knees, and I watched him dig through the leaves smirking. He came out with my shoe an hour later. I put it back on. The funny thing was, I saw where the shoe was the whole time. I just chose to let him crawl around in the bush until he found it. A lawyer in a $3,000 suit slid his glass of wine back at me and told me he wasn't paying for garbage. He'd swirled it once and made a face like he'd licked a battery. "I can taste the difference between real French wine and the cheap junk you scam tourists with. Get me your wine guy." We didn't have a wine guy. He grabbed my wrist before I could turn. "Sweetheart, I drink wine that costs more than your rent. When I say a bottle is garbage, the right answer is yes, sir. So go to the back, bring me what you keep for people who actually know wine, and no tricks. I have a $400 nose. I'll know." I wiped the rim of the same bottle he just sent back, poured it it into a fancy glass pitcher and brought it out on a shiny silver tray. "This is our special bottle, sir. We don't open it without the manager's okay," but I made an exception. He swirled it, sniffed it like he was diffusing a bomb, and closed his eyes. Heads turned. "Now, this is what real wine tastes like. A real wine guy knows in 2 seconds." He waved me over. "Notice the smoothness now. 15 years of training, and you taste the difference between real wine and grape juice with a fancy label. Charge me extra for it. Put another bottle on the bill to take home." I charged him for 2 bottles. He shook my hand on the way out and slipped me 100. "You've got a real future in this business, sweetheart." I waited until the door closed. Same bottle, same wine. The $400 nose just paid $400 more for it. I poured the last glass for table 4. On the house, from the gentleman in the suit. On my first day in prison, I saw my bunkmate shaving her legs with a piece of cardboard. I had no money in my commissary, so I pulled out a thread from the uniform and walked towards her. "I'll thread all the hairs on your body in exchange for ramen and a Snickers." She handed it over before I finished talking. "Girl, you're like really good. Wait till everybody hear about this. Just don't let the COs catch you with it." Right after I was done, a woman with the driest face I'd ever seen showed up at my cell. You know how to do makeup? I'll give you spicy Doritos and canned octopus." She excitedly jumped in front of me, and I rubbed cherry lip balm across a magazine page till the ink bled into the wax, then painted her lips and cheeks. She giggled. "So what you locked up for? Being too good at makeup or something?" I smiled sadly. "I'm not supposed to be here." She just shrugged, because that's what everyone in prison says. When I was done, she looked in the mirror and smiled. "Girl, that's perfect." I stepped out of my cell to look for the next customer, but I was faced with an officer holding his baton. But he glanced down the hall and lowered his voice. "My wife's visiting Sunday. Can you make me look, presentable?" I did his brows for $10 cash. And after that, the guards stopped pretending to care. They paid to skip the line and smuggled me real makeup tools from the outside so I could get even better at beauty. When I finally saved enough money to bail myself out of prison, I counted it out and posted it myself. Now I thread brows at a real salon instead of a prison cell. My son was in a school karate contest with a disabled kid, and he flexed his biceps to the crowd. "Who wants to see me win?" Half the school was chanting his name, and his opponent Sam limped onto the mat, one arm curled against his chest. I pushed down the bleacher steps, ready to drag my son off that mat myself. My son Cody bounced on his toes and cupped a hand to his ear. "Who wants to see me take him down?" The gym roared, and even the teachers were laughing behind their clipboards. A parent chaperone stuck her arm out to stop me from going any further. "They're focused. Don't try to disturb them." Sam planted his good arm into a fighting stance, and the referee dropped his hand between them. "Fight!" The crowd got impatient. "Come on, Cody!" But Sam stepped inside his guard, swung his good arm, and cracked Cody across the jaw so hard the sound echoed. Cody hit the mat flat on his back and stayed down. The referee lifted Sam's arm. I guess we have a winner." The crowd clapped lazily, but I was cheering and whistling at the top of my lungs. Sam was grinning ear to ear, looking happier than I'd ever seen him. And when Cody ran out to the water fountain, I chased after him. "What the hell is wrong with you? I didn't raise you like that." He put his hands on my shoulders. "Mom, I let him win." My jaw dropped and he continued. "I was always gonna let him win. I just hyped the crowd to make sure it felt real when he did." Behind him, the same kids who chanted Cody's name were now crowding around Sam, lifting his arm like a champion. I didn't need to find out if I raised him right. He'd been showing me the whole time. It was my first day as the captain's assistant on a boat tour when I went below deck and saw water spraying through a crack in the bottom of the boat. My heart raced as I sprinted up and grabbed the captain's arm. "Sir, there's a leak. We need to evacuate." But he rolled his eyes. "Relax, rookie. This boat always leaks a little. I've done this 1,000 times." I wanted to believe him, but the deck was packed with families, little kids in life vests eating ice cream, miles from shore. And when I looked back down the stairs, the water had already swallowed the bottom steps, and I knew this boat would sink in minutes. "Please, we have to turn back." But he shoved me aside and gunned the engine toward a shortcut. I'm not ruining my schedule over a little puddle. But then the boat slammed over a bed of rocks, and I heard a crash from below. I ran down to check, and the original crack had split into a gaping hole, water pouring in faster than before. The floor tilted so fast, a little girl slid past me screaming, "Mommy, we're sinking!" I ran back up to the wheel, where the captain stood frozen, so I grabbed the radio myself. "Mayday, we're sinking 2 miles out. Send help now." Cold water surged up over my ankles, and the second it hit the captain's feet, his face went white and he lost it. "I'm scared of drowning. Every man for himself." He tore the radio from my hands, grabbed a life raft, and shoved past me so hard the steering wheel snapped off its mount. I yelled, "You can't leave us!" But he'd already jumped, and it was just me, a broken wheel, and a boat full of crying families going under. We had maybe a minute before we went under, so I slammed the emergency lever, and the life rafts burst open along the rails. The water was at my knees as I dragged every family up out of it and shoved them in. But by the time I went back and grabbed the broken wheel, the water was at my waist and freezing, but I forced it back onto its mount. I steered quickly toward the shore as it rose to my chest, and the boat started sinking under me. Then the boat hit the shallow bottom and stopped, safe, as the Coast Guard raced in to help families from my mayday. But out in the waves, the captain was tangled in the raft he'd stolen, going under, screaming, "Help me, I'm drowning." I dove in and dragged him back onto shore. "You've done this 1,000 times, and a rookie had to save your ship and your life." The kid from next door stepped on the gas pedal of his white truck and rammed straight through my dad's fruit produce stand. Fruit and wood went flying across the lot, but none of us were surprised. You see, my dad built that stand the year my daughter was born, and every year the kid would come and smash it. We tried to stop it by standing in front of the truck, but it never worked. But the stand only cost $200 to rebuild, so all three of us rebuilt it together every year. But everything changed when my dad got sick. The last time he came to see the stand, he was so sick he could barely stand, and he was leaning on my arm. I guided him to sit in a folding chair, and he watched my daughter drive the nails in herself. He passed away 3 weeks later. After the funeral, my daughter climbed up on a milk crate with a paintbrush and wrote Grandpa across the top board, one shaky letter at a time. The next morning, I heard the boy coming again. I screamed, "Please, no! My dad is dead now, and this is all we have left of him." But he smirked, stepped on the gas pedal, and floored it. Boards went flying. He stuck his head out the window. "Build it stronger next time." My daughter watched her grandpa's name skid across the pavement. Enough was enough. That night, I drove to the hardware store. I came out with a 5-gallon bucket, a bag of quick-set concrete mix, and a steel pipe. I spent all night pouring concrete into a bucket, sticking a strong steel post in it, and letting it dry for a week. Then, me and my daughter built the wooden stand around this super strong base. She climbed back up on the milk crate and painted Grandpa across the top board again. We sat on the curb across the lot and waited. That afternoon, the kid came in his truck. The truck swung wide, lined up, and floored it. But as soon as he hit the produce stand, the smirk was wiped off his face. His truck crashed into the cement. The glass of his windows cracked, and the truck started folding in on itself. Steam rose from the hood. The kid kicked his door open and stumbled out, staring at the bumper crumpled around the steel post. The wooden boards had splintered off around the base. Grandpa was still painted across the top, untouched. My daughter looked at the kid. "We took your advice and built it stronger." I was streaming to 43 viewers from inside the tube of the big red slide at the water park when suddenly the lights all turned off. Me and my boys exchanged glances with each other as a chain scraped through the front gate. My boy Moss whispered, "If security finds us, that's breaking and entering." I smirked. "We have 8 hours until he comes back. Let's make the most of it." Moss rubbed his hands together like an evil fly, grabbed my selfie stick with the stream, and sprinted to the tallest drop slide. "Check me out, chat." He stood up on the platform rail and backflipped into the catch pool. I silently burst out laughing because for a second, we completely forgot about security. We drifted the lazy river next, 3 tubes hooked at the ankles, floating past dead neon under the open sky. My boy Dario grabbed my hand and joked, "So romantic." I shoved him off me, and I was pushing him under by the shoulders when a light turned on in the office window over the gates. Moss pulled us under the bridge. The window went dark, and nobody spoke for a full lap. The wave pool roared to life on its own, and none of us were anywhere near the switches. I fumbled with the panel to shut it off, but the waves kept rolling. I whispered into the camera, "We might be cooked, chat." A flashlight beam hit us from across the deck and pinned all 3 of us against the wall. Nobody ran because there was nowhere left to run. The beam walked closer until I could see him. It was an older guy with a buzz cut and a ring of keys on his hip. He clicked the flashlight off and turned his phone around. Our stream was playing on his screen. "I was the one who turned those lights off. I've been in your stream all day." I gasped because we'd spent 8 hours hiding from the man who was watching us hide. He kicked off his shoes. 22 years of night shifts, and I've never once gotten to go on the slides for free. Move. He slid down the red tube. When he got to the bottom, he held up 2 fingers. "You were never here." Then he turned the whole park back on, and for 1 hour, there were 4 of us. I ended the stream from the parking lot.